Hello, in this video tutorial we'll be creating a simple Node application to show you how to interact with the Google APIs to read data from them, as well as how to interact with the OpenAI API in order to take advantage of its text generating capabilities. So let's get into it. Alright, this is what our final product will look like. As you can see, we have this form with a series of questions like what is the location of the property, when was the property built, as well as some other questions regarding the condition of the building, like the wall cladding and so on and so forth. Our goal is to take this simple succession of questions and answers and turn it into a more nicely composed report. So we go to the console and we're gonna run this simple terminal application that we just wrote, and we're gonna see that indeed it starts generating a report. Okay, first of all, let's go over the prerequisites that you need in order to follow along this coding tutorial. So you need to have a Google account, and then you also need to have Node.js and NPM installed in your computer. So if you're missing any of those, go ahead, pause the video and take care of those prerequisites before continuing. Alright, next let's review what we're gonna be building today. So right here on the screen I have a spreadsheet saved on my Google account. This spreadsheet contains a series of questions and answers regarding the condition of a building. These were provided by an architect, and what we're gonna do is read the data from this spreadsheet. Then with that data we're gonna build a prompt, and we're gonna ask the chatbot to generate a more human readable and more formal report. So first of all, what we need to do is to create a Node project. So let's go ahead and open up our console. As you can see, I'm located here at the root of my drive. So I'm gonna move into the desktop where I want to create this project. And I'm gonna go ahead and create a new folder, which I'm gonna call OpenAI Demo. Then we're gonna move into that folder and we're gonna type npm init in order to initialize a Node application within this folder. Let's go ahead and just hit enter to keep all the defaults, and with that our Node application is created. So let's go ahead and open it up in our Visual Studio Code or the editor of your preference. Alright, as you can see, a package.json file was created automatically within the folder, which means that we have correctly initialized a Node application. So to continue, we're gonna go to a new tab and we're gonna Google this right here, Google Spreadsheet Node Quick Start, which is a quick start guide on how to connect our Node application with the Google APIs. Here they mention a few prerequisites like having Node and NPM installed, which I already covered before, as well as having a Google account and a Google Cloud project. So let's go ahead and get started with this second step right here, the Google Cloud project. Let's click on the link, click on go to create a project, and you will be forwarded to the Google Cloud console, where you'll be asked to name your project, which we're just gonna call OpenAI Demo. And then in case your Google account is managed by an organization, you're gonna be asked to choose an organization right here. If not, if it's just a private account, then you can leave it as no organization. So let's just go ahead and click on create. And with that, we've created a Google Console project. So let's go back to our quick start guide. The next step is to enable the API. This is what is gonna give your application the proper permits to interact with a specific API, in this case the Spreadsheets API. So right here you have to make sure that you have the correct project selected on this drop down. As you can see, I have multiple Google Cloud Console projects, so I have to make sure that I select OpenAI demo. Then I click on next and enable. Alright, with that out of the way, let's continue to configure the OAuth consent screen. Let's click on this link. We are given a couple choices right here on this screen. We can make our project either internal or external. If you choose external, it means that anyone with a Google account can access this project. In our case, we're just gonna keep it simple and choose internal right here. Click on create. And then it's just a matter of filling out the required fields on this form. So let's give a name to our app, just OpenAI demo. Then select support email, which you can just select your email in the drop down. And then down below, you are required to enter yet another email address. Let's go with the same address right here. And click on save and continue. Alright, so next we have to generate some credentials for authorization for our application. So let's just go ahead and click on go to credentials. From there, we are gonna click on create credentials and we're gonna choose OAuth client ID, the second option of this drop down. Here on application type, we're gonna choose desktop app. Let's just keep this default name right here. Click on create, and then this pop-up will show up where we are given the choice of downloading the credential as a JSON, which is what we're gonna do. We're gonna click on download JSON, and next we're gonna go to our file explorer because we need to take those credentials, we need to paste them into our project folder, which we have here on the desktop, OpenAI demo, and then we need to rename them as credentials.json. So next up, we have to install the client library, the Google API's client library. So let's go ahead and just copy this code snippet right here. Let's go to our Visual Studio Code or our editor, and let's open up a new terminal. You can also do this by using any other terminal of your choice, and then navigating to the folder of the project, pasting that command, we hit enter and we install the dependencies. Alright, so in the next step we're gonna be setting up a code sample that is gonna take care of the whole authorization, authentication flow of our application. Now, this is just a quick start example, which is not really production ready. If you want to use this for a production application that signs onto your Google account and accesses the Google APIs, then I recommend that you do a further reading of the documentation of the Google APIs. But to keep it simple in this tutorial, let's just go ahead and use the quick start example. We're gonna copy this code, then we're gonna go to our project and create an index.js file. We're gonna paste the code in there, and let's just go over this code real quick to see what it does. So the first few steps, just import the necessary dependencies for our project. Then they define the scopes, defining the things that your application is gonna have access to. As you can see right here on line 8, the only scope that we're given to our application is the spreadsheets, and we are only giving it read permits. Okay, we're not gonna be able to edit or to create any new spreadsheet. So next up, the next few methods that you're gonna see on this code sample they just take care of the authentication flow. And then this list majors method here on line 73 actually reads the data from the spreadsheet and then prints it out to the console. So first of all, in order to make sure that everything is properly connected, we're gonna stick with this code example right here, even if it's not the spreadsheet that we want to read, or if it's not the logic that we want to execute in our application. This is just to check if everything is working properly. So we're gonna go ahead and run this application by typing node dot. Alright, if everything went without any problems, then we should be redirected to the OAuth consent screen, where we're gonna choose our Google account to log in, and then we're gonna allow this application to access our spreadsheets. And then you should get right here on the browser a success message that tells you to return to the console. So we're gonna go back to our code editor, and we're gonna check out that indeed we have all these names and majors printed out to our console, which was the goal of this little code sample that we have here. Alright, so now that we know that everything is connected properly, we're gonna go to the next step of our application, which is modifying this function right here to actually read data from our target spreadsheet. And then with that data, we need to prompt the OpenAI API. So let's get into it. Alright, so next up we're gonna want to modify this list majors function to get it to read from our own spreadsheet, and also to change the logic of what this function does. We're no longer gonna want to just list, well, the data that is there in that spreadsheet, but we actually want to make a prompt so that later on we can pass it to the OpenAI API. So let's go ahead and remove all these comments right here that come with the code sample. Let's rename this function to parse questions and prompt chatbot. So next up, we're gonna wanna modify this code right here to read from our own spreadsheet. First of all, let's change the spreadsheet ID as the first parameter of this get function right here. So let's go to the browser and let's copy the ID of our own spreadsheet, which is the one right here in the URL after the d/. Okay, this long number right here. Let's copy it and let's go back to our code and paste it as a parameter of the get function. Next up, here in this range parameter, where we list we specify what are the columns and rows that we actually want to read, we're gonna have to change the name of this sheet right here, which is class data for the example, but our own sheet is called form responses 1. So let's go ahead and change that right here to form responses 1. And next, we're gonna want to change the rows and columns that we are reading from that spreadsheet. Okay, next, as we can see in our document, it has 2 rows, which are the ones that we want to read from our application. So back to our code, we're gonna change this A1 through E for A1 through Z2, which just means that we're gonna be reading the entire first 2 rows of the document, because the rest of the rows are just empty. We're gonna check if the rows actually have content. So we're gonna check if the rows are not empty. Else, we're gonna just log to the console no data found, and we are gonna return. after we have read the rows from our documents, let's write our own logic to parse the questions and answers from these two rows. And for that, we're gonna create a couple of new variables. The first one is gonna be questions, which is gonna be this rows array that we read up above here in line 74. We're gonna take the first element of that rows array, which is just the first row of the document right here, that has this first cell that just says timestamp, then it has some cells with questions, and then some empty cells at the end. So we want to do two things. The first one is to filter the elements of this row so that we make sure that they actually have content. So we are gonna leave out all the cells that are empty. So our filter criteria is to return all the cells that have a truly value, so they actually have content. And then we're just gonna remove the first cell of the row, because it's just this timestamp that we are not interested in. We're just interested in the questions and answers. We're gonna do the same with the rows answers, and instead of taking the first row, we're gonna take the second row, and we're gonna do the same process. So next, what I want to do is to concatenate all these questions and answers one after the other, so I can write a prompt that the chatbot can understand. Concatenate the questions and answers as a string. We're gonna create a new empty string variable with the name of questions and answers, and then we're just gonna use a for loop in order to concatenate question and answer one after the other. We're gonna use a template string right here, and now that we have this succession of questions and answers, we're gonna write the prompt to send to our OpenAI API. So the prompt reads: given the following questions and answers between angle brackets given by an architect who performed the inspection of a building, draft a building envelope assessment report with an introduction, body, and conclusion, questions and answers. And then in here I interpolate my questions and answers variable. Of course, this is just one of the many possible use cases for the chatbot. If you wanna write something different, if you wanna ask something different, you only have to change this prompt right here. And later on we are gonna write the method that calls the chatbot itself. And now all that's left is for us to actually write this method, and for that we're gonna have to connect with the OpenAI API. So our very first step would be to install the client library. So let's go to our console. Now we need to import a constructor from this library, and then we're gonna create an OpenAI object using this constructor that we just imported, to which need to pass an object with an API key parameter, which now we have to fill with an actual API key. So if you don't have one of those, you can head to your browser, open a new tab, look for OpenAI API. We click on this first result right here. You click in login. We click on API. Then we go to API keys. And if you do not already have a key, you click here on create new secret key, and then it's gonna ask for a phone number to confirm your account. But I'm gonna skip those steps because I already have an API key created. And Next, what we're gonna do is to actually move these sensible variables that we're gonna have here in our code, like the API key or like the ID of the spreadsheet, and we're gonna move all that to a .env file. Okay, we're gonna import those from environment variables, and in order to use this .env file, we actually need to install the Node.env dependency. .env. Next, we go to the top of our file, and we require the .env dependency, and we call the config method. Let's go ahead and create two new environment variables here. Now that we have our environment variables set up, all we have to do is to actually read them from our code, and then let's do the same with the ID of the spreadsheet right here. Instead of having it hard-coded, finally all that's left is to write our prompt chatbot function, which interacts with the OpenAI API, and try out our application. So we're gonna create this new stream variable, because in order to generate a better user experience, we're gonna print the response from the chatbot as a stream to the console. So it gives that illusion that the chatbot is typing. So we're gonna call this create asynchronous method, and then we're gonna specify a few parameters. First, the model, which is the chatbot model that we're gonna use. For the purpose of this tutorial, we are gonna use the GPT 3.5 Turbo model, because it's relatively cheap. You can also use other models like GPT-4, which is more expensive, but it has extended capabilities. And then we're gonna pass in this messages array, which in our case it's just gonna contain one object, one element in that array, which is an object with the role user. If you want to delve deeper into the completions and what we can do with this role parameter, then I recommend that you check the documentation, but ours is a very simple use case where we're just gonna send a message to the chatbot as a user and wait for a response. Then as a content property, we're gonna pass the prompt, and then we set this stream boolean parameter to true, so that the response is returned as a stream. And next, with this for loop, we're just gonna go ahead and print this stream out to the console. We just go to this last line where we first of all authorize the application. Then after we receive the authorization object, we pass it to this parse questions and prompt chatbot function that we wrote previously, and of course we catch any possible errors that can occur, like for instance when communicating with either of the APIs. But hopefully everything's gonna work just fine. So let's clear the console and let's run our application. If everything worked, then yes, we're gonna see a response from the API being printed onto our console. As we can see, it like we requested, it's a report with an introduction, a body, and conclusion from the questions that we passed to the OpenAI API.